Let's shift our emphasis slightly. We are now 18 months into the life of the Truth Commission. The proceedings are now dominated by amnesty applications and special hearings, like the one last week. We mostly hear the voices of perpetrators now. But it is important not to forget the first crucial part of the process, the human rights violations hearings, the voices of the victims of the past. This is a reminder.
It all began here on 15 April 1996 in the Eastern Cape, the womb of apartheid resistance over decades. Here in the glare of the world's media, they stepped where no one had gone before, and they spoke the first words in the great telling of our shameful and proud past. There were the wounded and the pained.
And I was still 20 at the time, and I couldn't handle this. So I was taken to Nyami's place, and when I got there, Nyami was crying terribly.
And then there were those with great loss in their hearts and anger in their veins.
I don't want to cry. Really, I don't want to cry, but I would like the commission to help me.
They were the brave pioneers of the Truth Commission, those who led all the others to sew their truths into the patchwork quilt of a new history.
There's been a lot of evil. There's been a lot of evil in this country. It's being exorcised.
The Commission sat in noisy cities and quiet dorpies. They sat in big, imposing town halls and dingy schools and churches, from Messina in the north to Cape Town in the south. And from everywhere the victims came. Some were dignified, silver-haired elders, others impassioned young lions. Sometimes they were even small little lions. The stories were of torture and abduction, rumors that became reality.
This is Piwo's hair. This is the scalp.
They spoke about massacres and wars. They spoke about the death of a single child and about the killing of whole families.
I heard their voices. No one screamed twice. Each one screamed just once. Then I'd hear the next one, and another one, until they finished them all.
There were those who wept about loved ones who disappeared without a trace. There were those who saw loved ones return as corpses.
And just to see that he has grown into manhood. He wasn't, he was still very young, but to see my little brother that has grown into a beautiful, strong-willed young man was just that really made me strong.
And the other one took out an assegai and stabbed my wife from the front, and the assegai went through to the back.
And then there were those who felt their own guilt like a knife.
But really I've just destroyed the people around me, my friends, my family. And I think it's enough now.
I heard all the time. And even now, although this time I'm also asking the same question. Who sold me to the police? Who sold me to the police? Anton died. With that question on his mouth.
But the common thread was that everywhere the extent of the horror was more than anyone had ever suspected. Even the smallest village had its casualties. The process was not easy. Often the truth was frightening. As the process gained momentum, victims sometimes came face to face with perpetrators and the grim reality of what they did. Few remained untouched as the floodgates of emotion were wedged open.
It is 25 years now, and that I will not forget what happened. I ask the Almighty that I will not forget what happened and that I need to know.
I remember pain of a scale that I didn't think a human being could ever experience. I remember going into darkness.
They left 12-month-old Phoenix traumatized and alone with her dead mother, in their home spattered with blood all over the place. It was disgusting, brutal, deceitful, treacherous, cold-blooded murder.
Pieces of him and brains, all of it was scattered around. That was the end of begging.
I think it was the 7th day. I was very hungry. I had no food, you know. They left me in that small room here at Rabasut. So I would just crawl into the toilet and drink from the toilet sink.
It was like I was alive and all these people were dead. I was so disturbed, but I would never let the Hodges know.
Take
They
it
were
easy,
destroying me.
Take your time, please. Don't rush yourself.
They did destroy me.
He watched from under the bed as they pumped bullets into his brother and his wife, bullets penetrating them simultaneously. They turned them over face upward, and one asked, "As hell is dood?" "More's dood," was the reply. Levy breaks down as he relates this. Bullets were pumped into Joseph, who was hiding in a wall unit.
We looked on the floor, and we saw my son lying in one corner. I want to say, listeners, that is one thing that has troubled me for the rest of my life, to find my son in that condition, having done nothing, killed innocently.
There were the cynics, of course. Some called it the Crying Commission, but often they were white or old allies of apartheid and scared of the guilt that came with hearing the truth. But then there were those who became part of the telling, and through that, some sort of reconciliation.
U het in die harte van verwonde, soms verpletterde mense ingekry. My en my kinders verhaal is klein in vergelyking met soveel ander vir wie ons harte bloei. Ons swaar kry is maar 'n druppel in die Suid-Afrikaanse emmer.
But what did all these who came to bear their souls seek? For many it was simply enough to tell their story to a nation whose time it was to listen. Others wanted to lay the past to rest, Again and again they asked for the remains of those who had disappeared. For some, like the family of murdered ANC cadre Pila Ndwandwe, this became a terrible reality. For others, the bones were lost forever, dumped into this river. But knowing this was the beginning of the ending for them.
Thixo wethu olungileyo, ndimi phezu kwala matye ndim nomlingane wam nomntanam alapho mama uHashe Godolo zigalela nabantwana babo Thixo wethu othe wasigcina seva oba ebudeni bale minyaka sihambe ebumnyameni amathambo intsalela zenyama yabalingane nabantwana bethu Thixo wethu yazawugalelwa ngeplastiki Thixo wethu ngamabhulu awayephethe ngelo xesha into zonivoti Thixo wethu olungileyo izinto zo-Van Rensburg Thixo wethu into ezinamandla amakhulu.
Over the 14 months, the South African truth process developed its own unique identity. Even while listening to the most harrowing testimony, people could still laugh. People also sang, gave comfort to others, and when there was nothing more to say, they prayed.
Supposed to bring an end to the violent political conflict that ripped our nation apart. It did, but not in KwaZulu-Natal. Even in the past week, there were political killings in the Richmond area. Traditions and rituals play a big role in this conflict, like the use by young fighters of a substance called Intelezi.
Intelezi is a Zulu word which defines a substance smeared by warriors on their bodies before they go into battle. It has been a custom of the African people long before King Shaka's time, can only be given out by Inyangas and is associated with power. Some people call it muti and some regard it as an essential protection for their homes.
Alone, you are very, very weak, against the elements of nature. That's why we have the different types of clothing. And even besides that, we know that emotionally, spiritually, we are very, very weak. We have all sorts of fears, and we know how limited our physical capacities are, our mental capacities are. So we appeal for extra cover, extra strength, and then we use different types of elements, different types. We engage in different types of rituals as a source of this extra strength. So Intelezi should be seen in that context, but every culture has its Intelezi.
Well, as we have said that it is a medicine herb, this thing really works because the people who believe in all these things becomes the victim of them. Without them, they cannot do anything. With them, they can do anything. As you know that there was war here in Richmond, there's a lot that I experienced. And I've written a book about the violence here in Richmond. There were times where the people from this side were not keen to fight or defend their area. They'll always tell their parents that their parents need to buy Intelezi for them. So at the end of the day, these Intelezis and something of that sort has a psychological effect in the minds of the people who are involved in war. It is their belief. So when this violence started, the boys from the other area of Makota, whenever the IFP was approaching with the whistle, blowing the whistle, they would run for their lives. When they come here next to my house running past it, I'll ask them, why are you running? They'll say, no, whenever these people are blowing this whistle, our stomachs really tense. We always get running stomachs. No, we must get Intelezi. And after they got that Intelezi, they were not running. So I'm saying it is in one's mind. If they believe in it, you can't do without it. So that's exactly what was happening here. They will tell you that whenever they are blowing this whistle, they get running stomach and they run. But after they've used that Intelezi that they bought, they were not running.
For Professor Jabulani Mapalala of Zululand University in Empangeni, who sees himself as an African traditionalist, the issue of Intelezi is about African roots and ethnicity.
Intelezi go far beyond Shaka because Intelezi is connected with the Nile Valley civilization. As you know that all the Africans originated from the Nile Valley, and that is where, of course, civilization started. Therefore, Africans are culturally united, and that has been established in a book by Cheikh Anta Diop, the Black African Cultural Unit. He says that the book was established as early as 1987. Therefore, Intelezi is associated with this because civilization started here, medicine started in the Nile Valley. Imhotep was the father of medicine. And therefore, the idea of medicine also started in Africa. Calendar, art of writing, philosophy, and what have you, all of it started in Africa. Therefore, when we speak about Intelezi, we must know that we are not talking about something we studied in KwaZulu or in Lesotho or in Swaziland. It's just an African thing. We could cure ourselves of any type of ailment. But at the same time also, coming to Intelezi now, Intelezi would be grown in any home. It's what the white people call flowers. But we Africans call that Intelezi. You may find an ordinary flower when you are entering a traditional home, but it's not a traditional flower. It is Intelezi. It is there to prevent either otogoloshe, either izimfene, all the evil spirit harming the inhabitants of that particular home. That is the Intelezi which is visible. But the second Intelezi is the one which is used by all warriors, all regiments, all traditional soldiers when going to war. They will first consult Inyanga or traditional doctor. And this traditional doctor would now prepare this medicine which we call Intelezi. Some of it will be sprinkled on all of them. And another one may be drunk by these people and induce vomiting. And another one, of course, may be smeared on them. And then when now they sing and ready for war, and then they are ready. And it is believed that it will make them invisible when confronting an enemy. They will never go to a war having not conducted Inyang, who will prepare them accordingly.
In war, there are two aspects that are involved, if not three. One is the physical involvement where people are stepping or shooting one another. Secondly is the question of the moral or spiritual involvement, where your heart or your spirit will tell you that we've got to do this. So the trend that seems to be taking place here in trying to solve the conflicts is only to focus on the physical confrontation as such, where a man is taking something and stepping someone. That's what is really seems to be happening. I'm saying we need to go beyond that. We need to involve religious people who will be dealing with the moral aspect of the people. People who will conscientize the people as how bad it is to kill one another. Secondly, we've got also to attend to the question of these motives that they're using when they're fighting, because it's just really a package. You can't just deal with a certain elements within the package and leave the rest out.
It's not a superstition as some people think of it. There are certain forces that we believe in as Africans. These forces operate with you as a person, operate with some kind of mixtures, herbs, sometimes some part of the animal. These powers, of course, invoke the power that you have in yourself. Each one has got this power. It is in itself neutral, this power. doesn't mean that it is dormant. It is very powerful, it is very potent, but you can use this power for good or for evil. Depends on how you organize it.
A lot of these rituals were also, I think, based on quite a deep insight into human psychology. So that you had rituals that were meant to empower the individual and give the individual boldness and courage to do extraordinary events. But you also had rituals that people realized were necessary, in order to demotivate people from actually committing, horrendous acts. For example, it was known that, if you had killed, someone, a ritual would be performed to get that desire to kill, because it was assumed that, you must have been possessed by something that is inhuman, that is not really needed, wanted in normal, life. You see? So there would be a ritual to get that out, of you.
But Intelezi is associated with belligerence, an attitude not contributing to peace and reconciliation in KwaZulu-Natal.